Notice too, these often have little moustaches and beards,
Yes.
so they're not completely clean shaven, and you notice his hair is meant to be cropped. It's like a crew cut
Yes.
kind of thing, like he's in the Marines or something, because this is what happens when you have your head shaved and you spend a couple of months sitting on a mountain crag staring off into space. Your hair grows back. But he also isn't wearing the previous Buddha was wearing a normal robe that a Buddhist priest would wear. He's
Mm.
wearing draping garments, which, since the historical Buddha came from India, there was a lot of Indian influence in the clothing that the Buddha was depicted wearing. Um, yeah, and if you go to Sri Lanka and see Buddhist priests there, or Thailand, that clothing is very closely related to the ancient clothing that was being worn in India when the Buddha was alive. Um, so this one is more typical of what a Buddhist would be wearing,
Yes.
and
So these
yeah,
two are very interesting, right, Pete?
yeah, because they're they're more depicting. Well, they say enlightened disciple. They're more depicting priests at a high level of enlightenment as opposed to ordinary priests that are just saying prayers in a monastery or in a temple. And they have that serenity to some degree.
Going back to Thailand, a sitting
Yeah,
Buddha in the Maravijaya posture is also cast bronze, partly painted and gilt.
yeah. Look how well they can integrate paint and bronze and the gilding again for the skin colors.
Yes.
Though the little flame ornament on top of his hair
Yeah.
is also gilded,
Yes.
possibly representing a standard of hairdressing. I mean, the things people put in their hair are often gilded if they were very rich. And it's not that Buddha was rich, it's that he was of very high status, not because in real life he was a prince, but because he'd given all that away and become
Yes.
detached from the worries of the world. Notice Thai Buddhas in this style, really wide shoulders. uh, if you met Buddha at the gym, which I'm sure somebody will write a book about one day, um, yeah, he wouldn't look weedy at all. But this is the slender Buddha again. It's not the ascetic Buddha who's all bony, um, but he's very, very slender and very
Yes.
focused on his meditation.
Yes. Yes, that's true. Very nice.
Yeah.
And this one, Pete, take a look at this one.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Also
a whole
bronze.
different style of sculpture, isn't
Yes.
it?
The whole different style. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the pose is the same. He's got an ornament on top of his hair and everything, but it's a totally different style.
Yeah.
Yet I think the previous one came from the same place as well, Cheng Sen.
Yes. Yes.
But interesting because they refer to it as a mixed style, and you can see there's evidence of the traditional Buddhist stylized pose with a kind of folk art influence as well. So that this is more what the people in this area really wanted things to look like.
Yes. Look at this one, Pete.
So this is the same area, the
Yeah.
same general time, yet different again.
Yeah.
Obviously, originally it was painted and gilded.
Yes.
He's kind of leaning a bit forward, isn't he?
Yeah, he
And yeah, and he's more solidly built. He's built more like a wrestler than he is like a gymnast. Um,
Yes.
which it's just what people see. The thing is, you make the statue in order that people can meditate, and therefore, um, it's got to be something that will keep them focused. You make it if he had a long curly beard, it wouldn't work. I mean,
Very
it's really
nice.
funny. The same thing happened in Christianity.
Yeah.
The original depictions of Christ, he was clean shaven with short hair.
Yes. Yes.
In the what, first and second centuries or whenever they first started, because he looked more like, again, like Apollo. Um, but then later on, he started to get quite bearded. He starts out with brown, black hair, and then it gradually gets blonder as time goes on.
Yes,
Um,
true.
and it's just reflecting fashion.
Fashion. Absolutely.
Because somebody paid for the painting going to the
Yes.
church and it had to please them. Otherwise, the person doesn't get paid. Now, there's something I wouldn't want to say all at once.
This is beautiful, isn't it? This bead, this is small, 11.8, is from Korea, right? Gilt
Mm,
bronze.
yeah. Koreans do lovely sculpture. And again, it's a whole different feeling. You can see this is definitely culturally different. I mean, it's doing all the proper Buddhist things.
Yes.
And Joseon is a particularly important dynasty in Korean history because, this is when a lot of stuff happened within relatively recent times. Um, but yeah, I mean, this would be, well, 15th century, 1400s, maybe in the time of King Sejong or something like that.
Yeah.
And this is when Korea was writing Korean in Chinese characters, but using the Chinese characters for the sound, not for the meaning. And King Sejong decided this was a bit cumbersome. Only the scholar elite could spend the time to learn all these different characters for the different sounds. So he got an academy together to invent an alphabet, which is the current Hangul, the current
Bead.
Korean alphabet.
My apologies for this dark picture. I mean, I realized it later on. So it's unfortunate. It's a very beautiful one, but this is like a writing on the line Buddha, China.
For its sculptural qualities, you want to see it all. But if you just look at it there, it's so strong and powerful,
Yes.
which is purely an accident. But it's brilliant. Sitting on a lion or a tiger, depending. Because remember, the Buddha came from northwest India up around Nepal, and there were actually, and there still are lions in India, in the western part of India
Yes.
and Pakistan,
Yeah.
like in
Yes.
the forest of Gore.
Yeah.
And so it's they were familiar with that, but the Chinese weren't familiar with lions. They were familiar with tigers,
Yes.
and when they had descriptions of lions in Buddhist literature, which were based on real lions, they got a bit carried away in their depictions of lions. In the Ming Dynasty, they actually did import real lions into China.
Yeah.
They were often given as gifts to the Ming Emperor when the big trading fleets or the big treasure fleets, they used to call them,
Yes.
in the Yongle reign period, went sailing as far as Aden and the west coast of Africa, the east coast of Africa. Sorry, I'm doing it.
Yes. So this
So
one is
they
also
did actually
quite
get.
big, 43 centimeters.
Yeah, that's big for bronze. And we say that.
Unfortunately, sorry, go ahead, please.
I was going to say we say that's big for bronze, but there were actually huge Buddhist bronze
Yeah, yeah,
statues,
of course.
like the ones in Japan.
Of course.
Um, so it's not that all bronzes were smaller. It's just that the majority of bronzes in these styles are quite small. This
Yes.
is Samantha on a white elephant.
Yes.
Yeah, that does. Again, that's that sitting. He's sitting side saddle as he was on the, well. This is a different bodhisattva. So, but as the figure was on the previous one, sitting side saddle on the lion tiger.
Yes.
Um, because it's a throne, it's not a method of transportation.
On an elephant, this one, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's nice. As I say, the elephant is showing it's a bit hard holding up a bodhisattva. I mean, it's a tiny elephant, but the thing is that the great weight of the, well, in a bodhisattva's case, of goodness, because they're trying to help people reach enlightenment. rather than progress to their own enlightenment. So bodhisattvas are the good
Yes.
guys of Buddhism, prepared to put other people's welfare ahead of their own. Oh,
This one comes
Gandharans.
from, yeah, Pakistan. Today's Pakistan. That's interesting.
Yeah. Now, this is really interesting because Gandhara and this area is where Buddhas first started to be carved. Before that, they might show a wheel on a lotus throne or something. They never depicted it. But because of the Greek um, presence
Yes.
in this area, Gandhara particularly, Indian sculptures had started to absorb Greek ideas. And you see the folds in the robes are very much in the Greek style,
Yes.
but
Yes.
it's also, you can see the beginnings of certain types of Indian art as well,
Yes.
because the Indian artistic um, universe was very much into very sensual, movement-oriented figures. So that warriors fighting and everything is smooth curves and deliberate movements. And you look at the figures in this, and you can see Greek influence in the face. Some of the faces look like cherub faces and things like that. But the Buddhist face is entirely different. The bearded man, if you saw him in a Greek sculpture, you wouldn't be surprised. But
This one.
bearded men were, yeah, bearded men were very common in these various Indian cultures. And I'm using Indian in that general sense.
Yes.
I'm not. Pakistan and India are modern states. We're talking about, um,
Hindustani.
uh, yeah, Hindustan is probably a better word for it. Um,
Go
yeah,
back
you
to
see these.
China.
Yeah, you see these really early ones, and I mean the Gandharan stuff is much older than this.
Yeah.
Um, but it's you can see the influences progressing. So it was a fusion of Western and Eastern art
Yes.
that is totally Eastern. you know,
Mm.
it's you're not. There's nothing wrong with taking ideas from other places if they
Yes.
suit your artistic expression.
Yes.
Um,
Beautiful.
yeah, I liked it. These little stele are
And look at these
amazing.
ones.
Oh, see,
Tibet.
isn't it amazing? This is 15th to 20th century, and how clearly they're of one family
Yes.
of art. Uh, the um, the
Yes.
many armed, almost Hindu looking like one. Actually, that's tantric. That's two people having being very friendly. Very
Yes,
very
it's
tantric.
tantric. Yes. I just
Yeah, you
yes.
don't notice it at first, but there it is.
No, I
Um,
did. I should have made a close up, but maybe it's good that I didn't.
Probably a good you didn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
if people want to see it, they can go to the museum.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly. Yes.
but see, we've got to think that within this context, it wasn't purient or anything like that.
Yes.
It was a an attempt to embody the complexity of the world,
Yes.
which is all these things mixing together. And the stories that go with some of these images are amazing. Um, Very difficult to interpret without the full story. In Tibetan art, there's lots of this because the last flourishing of Buddhism in India,
Mm.
um, a lot of the people involved in that last period moved into Tibet. So you've got, say, places like Myanmar and Thailand and that. They're Theravada, they're one particular school, but this is coming from the Vajrayana, and this is people were being like in the earliest periods when these were being done.
Yes.
Uh, it was the Muslim advance into northern India where most of the big temples were destroyed. And so that the people that got away started to move north into Tibet and places like that. And it brought, I mean, 7th century or so.
Yes.
It brought a huge change because Tibet had its own religion before Buddhism
Yes.
came.
Yes.
I love the fact that, well, it's within 500 years. We're not quite sure when, but because you're not, because they're exactly the same. Uh, if you ever try to learn Tibetan, um,
Hmm.
you discover that Tibetan orthography, the way they spelt words, froze like 1,000 years ago and hasn't changed. Yet Tibetan's pronunciation's changed. It makes English look phonetic, which is difficult to imagine, but it's true. Um, See, there's little. I think the throne is born on little elephants. I'm not. They look like little elephants to me, and it's a lotus throne, and the Buddha is floating on it. See the red robe too. I mean, um,
Yeah.
in Tibet, sects were differentiated by what color hats they wore: red
Yeah.
hats, yellow hats, all this kind of stuff. It's really, really everything has some kind of esoteric meaning.
I remember, Bit, you said frozen, but I think we talked about it. Um, in Tehran, we went to primary school and it was international school, so we learned from the first class English, half in Persian. And then by the
Mhm.
time we were second class, third class, we started to read Shahnameh, real Shahnameh. And I
Mhm.
remember once in a class, we asked the teacher, the English teacher, why don't we read also stories like Shahnameh times from England?
Mhm.
And she looked at us, started to laugh. You won't understand anything. Not even.
Yeah, look at
Yeah, exactly.
Beowulf.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
then we all
Beowulf
said,
is
why not? And then she said, well, English is not like Persian. In Persian, you can read 10th, 11th century, understand, but in English, you can't. You know, I remember that. You said it. It reminded me of
look.
our teacher. She said that back then.
People have problems in English reading the Canterbury Tales, which
Yes.
were written in the 1300s, 14th century, right?
Yes.
Because English went through a massive change in
Yes.
pronunciation,
Yes.
which is referred to as the Great Vowel Shift. And then when printing was introduced, it was introduced from the Low Countries
Yes.
in Europe, and several of the sounds in English, which the English had letters for, didn't exist. So when they bought the type over, they didn't have letters for these. This is
Yes.
that there had been a stage. There was a letter for the th sound,
Yes.
as in thought or think or whatever. Um, in fact, there were two letters, and weirdly, there are actually two sounds in English, but they never used them consistently to refer to one sound or the other. But by the time of Chaucer, they were writing th instead of using the thorn, which is still used in Icelandic, I might add. Um, Icelandic has retained almost all of those letters. They went out of use in say Denmark, Norway, Germany,
Yes.
Sweden, because the Germanic languages lost those fricatives, the th and the vert sound, and turned them into aspirated um, consonants t and d. And then they lost the aspiration in some cases. So the letters didn't have any use anymore. But in English, we still say them, but we don't have the letters anymore.
No.
And there was no W, for instance. There was an
Yes.
English letter called Win that served for W.
Yes. True.
So, but Tibetan is even more bizarre because in Tibetan, there was a whole series of grammatical
Yes.
sounds that were put at the beginning and ends of words.
Yes.
And over time, they stopped pronouncing them, but they still wrote them down. And as a young man, I used to love getting books on Tibetan history that were published in China because they would have the title in Tibetan at the top, and there would be words that were so long that they wrap around the page. Yet in Tibetan, they only had about three. In modern Tibetan, they only had about 3 or 4 syllables, but
So
they had all the
it was
yes.
about the Buddha and the exhibition on it. They're not all of them here, but some of them. And now we can move to the next part.